Chapter 12, Part 1, How Finding and Living Your Purpose Helps Keep You Off Drugs. So let's get a little bit deep about this, guys. Why are we here? Were we put on this earth just to work some job we don't like, pay bills, take a vacation or two, and die? I certainly don't want to think that that's the case. I think that people have a unique talent that they're born with, or many talents that they're born with inherently, and that if they learn to explore those things, they will find fulfillment in work. This could be somebody who is an artist, and maybe they paint beautiful things, or you build beautiful sculptures or things like that, and they may or may not be financially rewarded so much with that, but they bring joy and happiness into the world. And if they can make a living at that, then great, they're thrilled. They may be happy not having a ton of money, but that's okay. Who's to say that they should be in pursuit of that dollar when their life is filled with joy and they get to create joy for people? Or maybe someone's talent is something different. Maybe they know how to grow flowers and food and things from the ground and in amazing ways, and they're really good at it, and their fruits and vegetables are healthy and thriving and strong, and they can farm and things like that. That's great. That gives them fulfillment. I feel like society these days tries to pressure people into being something that someone else deems is successful. And I'm going to tell you that just because something makes money doesn't necessarily mean that it is successful. And I think the younger generation is noticing this. And I think that it's a big gap between, let's say, my generation and the younger generation. And I used to think that people were lazy, younger people were lazy. And I think probably even generations before me probably thought that about me. And maybe they were right, I don't know. But I see that kids, well, I call them kids if they're like in their 20s now, but these young people who've grown up with technology, they've always had the internet their whole lives. They've had video games, they've had things that came out when I was younger, but they've grown up with only knowing it. And they see things and they think, well, software can do things for me. And rather than me sitting down and doing a ton of work, I can have software do that work for me. And I can leverage that software so that I can be, let's say, on a beach with a laptop making money. And I think that is actually true. I'm not talking about that Instagram person who has 1 million followers and makes money and that's a 1 in a million. That's like all the kids that want to go be actors in Hollywood, and only 1 out of 1 million is going to make it. But I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about people that can work from home, that can build an online business, specialize in something, and be successful, and have a work-life balance that they enjoy, like the 4-Hour Work Week, which was a famous book by Tim Ferriss that I really liked. And a lot of people resonate with that. They think to themselves, why do I have to work 8 to 5, and go into a job, into an office every day and work myself to death? And the work from home movement after COVID has changed things a lot too. More people are thinking, well, why do I have to go into the office and do that? Why can't I, if I can do my job from anywhere, why can't I do it from, living in the jungles of Panama, or, on the beach in New Jersey, or wherever? It doesn't really matter. And so I think because that's such a dramatic shift from previous generations, it's tough for people to see that as a parent, hey, my kid is being lazy because they're not really getting up and going to work so much. And I've fallen into this myself. I've tried to get my kids going more and feel like they are not working the way that I worked. And of course, as parents, we need to push our kids, or else they're just going to do whatever is the easiest route sometimes. But I just think that living your purpose is so key to living a happy life. And obviously this relates to drugs and alcohol, because if you're living a happy life, you don't feel the need to numb yourself. You don't feel like you need to be, you need to put yourself unconscious or have fun or something like that because your life is so miserable. And I think a lot of older people who may have worked 30 years at one career and have maybe even broken their bodies down pretty hard if they worked physical labor, they can think for themselves that, hey, I don't want my kid or my grandkid to have to do that too. And they may have sacrificed for their kids, but then they see their kids not taking advantage of that. So I think, in my opinion, that we want to try to help our children and our loved ones find their purpose and help them live their purpose and live an authentic life. Maybe you were a lawyer and you want your kids to be lawyers too, but your kid wants to be an actor and you just can't relate. Well, don't you want the steady money? Doesn't it worry you that you may be out of work? They may not be worried about that. You're putting your worries onto them. And would you rather they go out and live as a lawyer, not living an authentic life, even if they're making a lot of money? Let's say they're making $500,000 a year in salary or $1 million a year, and you think they're successful, but they're drinking themselves to death from the stress of it and from hating their life, from getting up and looking in the mirror and not wanting to put on that suit and tie every day and not wanting to do that job. Because I can tell you that I see those kids in rehab every day. They are doing things for their parents. They're doing things that they want to make their parents proud. And they have a hard time dealing with not being authentic and living out their own purpose and their own authentic life. And so they numb themselves with drugs and alcohol. So I would ask parents, do you want your kids healthy, happy, living the lives that they want to live, or do you want them to live the life that you want them to live? Because I can tell you, when they live the life that you want them to live, they have a high chance of not being happy. And so I talk about this a bit in my book, and I talk about different things that people can do where they don't need to have a degree or anything like that, because, like I said, if you teach people to fish, if you're a great fisherman and you teach people how to fish, do you think that the person you're teaching to fish cares if you went to Harvard to get your degree or if you have a degree at all? No, they care that you know how to fish because that's what you're teaching them. And if that's your skill, that's your skill. It doesn't matter. Now, if you choose to get education, that's great. But if your purpose is aligned with fishing, then maybe you don't need to do that. Maybe you want to fish all over the world. Maybe you want to go to Japan and fish there, and you want to go to Europe and fish there, and you want to fish different seas, different waters, use different baits, different things. All that experience is an education in itself. You don't learn that from a book. So anyway, I'm bringing all this up because I see so often that people who are in rehab kind of sort of when you peel things back, they didn't want to let their parents down, and they didn't want to let their parents down because their parents were putting pressure on them. And I get it, because as a parent myself, I want my kids to be self-sufficient. I want them to be independent. I want them, if I died tomorrow, I want them to be able to make a living, because the last thing you want to do is have your kids be helpless and not able to make it in the world. However, by putting your own views on them as to what they should do and how they should live and who they should be, that leads these children into stress. And so it's not easy. I get it. I'm a parent. I'm still making mistakes as a parent all the time. However, I've seen a lot of numbers of kids where this was a big problem for them. And when they talk about things, when the parents and the child actually speak, and this child could be 40 or 50 years old speaking to his 70 or 80-year-old parents. So it's not an age thing. It's the relationship. But when they actually get some closure there, where the parents accept that it's okay if their kid does whatever job they want to do, as long as it's, as long as it's legal and legitimate and they can make a living somehow off of it. The parents accept that from their children. The relief that is seen from the child is immense, and it really almost opens up their hearts that much more. And then you'll see in the parents the hurt in their eyes because they thought they were doing the right thing, but they realized that their pressure and their expectations that they had for their kids led their kids to feel like failures and go down a road of destruction and self-hate because they couldn't feel like they could live up to their parents. And then the parents feel guilty for pushing that on them. And when all of this stuff resolves and they can blow through it, they have a much happier relationship together. And that person can go on to live their purpose. And when they live their purpose, they live aligned with who they are, and they don't feel the need to numb themselves. So I just wanted to stress that as part of this chapter. And I hope you guys take it to heart. Again, I'll say it one more time. It's not easy. Being a parent is the hardest thing I've ever done. And I've treated thousands of drug addicts and and alcoholics. And I have managed hundreds and hundreds of employees who are dealing with those people. And people tell me, wow, that must be so hard. Well, raising my kids was infinitely harder. So to all your parents out there, I know you're probably doing your best, but please take this advice to heart. It's okay to push your children and make them better, as long as you're doing it from a place of love, but try not to put your expectations on them, because they may never be able to live up to them, and they may always feel like they hate themselves because they can't. So if you don't put that out on them, you should have a better relationship.